Shalom Aleichem Rabbi Sai. This is the week of Pinchas. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, the great hero of the Jewish people. And there's few sedras named after people. In fact, there's 6 sedras named after people. 4 tzaddikim and 2 rishoyim. The 4 tzaddikim was Noach, Chayesara, Yisro, and Pinchas. And the rishoyim is Balak and Korach. So we have 4 parshas named after tzaddikim and 2 after rishoyim. So that's the 6 parshas that have the name of people in it. Now, if you say Eila told us Noach and you call it Noach, so why don't you say Eila told us Yitzchak and call it Yitzchak? Why is it called Toldos? Answer: last week I told you that because Noach is all about Noach from the beginning, first word to the last word, all about the Mabul and the flood and the Mabul and the flood and the light went out. We have to get it turned back on. So at the beginning to end is about the Mabul and about Noah. But Toldos is told us about Yaakov and Esav, not about Yitzchak. One little incident with Yitzchak and then about Yaakov running away to his uncle. But 90% is about Yaakov and Esav, not about Yitzchak. Therefore, it's not called Yitzchak. It's called Eila. It's called Toldos. But Eila told us Noah is about Noah. Anyhow, let's talk about this week's parsha. Pinchas. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, a tzaddik of a tzaddik. He did a tremendous act of assassinating one of the leaders of Klal Yisrael. He assassinated the leaders of Klal Yisrael. One was the leader of the tribe of Shimon. Shimon was called Zimri, the Nasi was called Zimri ben Salu. Zimri ben Salu. Under him was 59,000 people. After this whole incident was over, it was only 22,000. 37,000 had been killed from Shimon because of this act of immorality perpetrated by the entire tribe of Shimon and their leader, Zimri ben Salu. Look at last week said, the last sentence talks about 24,000 people died from Shimon, mostly from Shimon, because of this terrible act with the daughters of Midian. So at the end of last week's Sedra, he saw this terrible plague going on, so he picked a romach up, not a sword, a spear, and went into the tent of Zimri and executed him with the woman through their organs. And the plague stopped. So this week's Sedra starts out, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, Hey Shivas Chamosi, returned my anger and I did not wipe out the Jewish people. So he says there, therefore I'm giving him a bris shalom. Every coin in the world comes from Pinchas. Aaron had 4 children, 2 died and 2 survived. Lazar be Isamar. Isamar and Lazar, we don't know too much about their children, but the Chazal tell us that almost every coin comes from Pinchas. And I'm giving to him brisi shalom. And in the Rashi Chumash of the art scroll called the Sabrisi Chumash, they messed up. They missed something. Pinchas is spelled with Pei, Yud, Nun, Ches, Saf, Samch. So there's supposed to be a little Yud there. Pei, Yud, Nun, Ches, Samach. But a Yud is the smallest letter of the Aleph base, and that Yud is supposed to be even smaller. It's called Yud Ze'ira. They didn't mention that, but all the other Chumashim have it. It's Yud Ze'ira. The art scroll messed up. They didn't have it. That's the Iker thing. Why? Because the Yud is small. That represents Yud Kei Vav Kei. How do you know that Pinchas killed this man purely l'shem Shomayim and no personal vendetta or anger or agenda or any negiyos or peniel, no subjectivity? How do you know? Because Hashem testifies that the Yud is so small. The Yud itself is a small letter, and the Yud is Yod Ze'ira. Nobody noticed that he was Kula l'shem Shemayim, l'shem Yud Kei Vav Kei until the end. God blessed him. He could have been a hothead that had some anger about that man who once did something to him, so he's taking revenge. There wasn't even 1/1,000,000% of Negiah, personal involvement, no agenda. He just saw Chil Hashem. He assassinated the man. Later on, Hashem testified, Pinchas ben Elazar and Aaron are going. He's going to forever have Kohanim from him. And you didn't notice the Yud Kei Vav Kei in Pinchas till later. That's one reason. Second reason is Pinchas. That's Eliyahu Hanavi. 500 years later, Eliyahu Hanavi came from him. Yud Pinchas Eli is Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yahu Hey Vav. That's Yud, part of God's name. So Eliyahu is that Pinchas. And Eliyahu also killed people, 850 in the VA Sheker on Hara Carmel. And his great-great-great-great-grandfather Pinchas did that too and stopped the plague. And after Eliyahu killed all the VA Baal, there was no more Baal worship. So they had the same neshama. Now the Yalkut Shimoni says that Rabbi Akiva was the Gilgul of Zimri. And Cosby, the woman that he had relation with, who was the king of Bullock, they called that his name was Tsur. They changed the name from Bullock to Tsur. She was Cosby Bas Tsur, as called at Bullock. That was the Gilgul of Rabbi Akiva's wife. How does that work? Rabbi Akiva married the wife of Turnus Rufus, the Roman. I think it was a Roman. Yeah. Second base makes it destroyed by the Romans. He was a general. I don't think it was the emperor. Turnus Rufus, when he saw her, he spit and he laughed. He spit because she's married to a Russian, and he laughed because he knew he was going to marry her, and then he cried because unfortunately this beautiful woman is going to have to go in the grave one day, disintegrated into Afar. He spit, he cried, he laughed. And eventually her husband got rid of her, or she got divorced, or he got killed, and she became a Geuris, and Rabbi Akiva married her. Now what's the connection? This Zimri was enthralled by this woman Cosby, and he grabbed her by the hair. She was the most beautiful woman. She wanted to Cosby, give me the cup. She said she wanted Moshe Rabbeinu to seduce him. Some say Zimri did it to Shem Shemaim, that he should be killed, not Moshe. He said, why you want to go to Moshe? Moshe comes from the third Shevet, Reuben, Shimon, and Levi. I come from the second. And a few other proofs, he said. So they two got together. He grabbed her by the hair, most beautiful part of a woman, brought her to Moshe Rabbeinu and says, Zu Asura, Zu Ozu Muteres. Is she permissible? Is she forbidden? Moshe said, she's a guy. She's all forbidden. He says, and you? Who permitted you to marry a Midianite woman? Yisro's daughter, Midianite? Of course, that was a stupid question because before Matan Torah, there was no restrictions. Number two, Sipporah converted to Seb Mitzvah B'nai Noach. This woman was after Matan Torah. She was a zone, not converted. So Moshe couldn't answer at all because he insulted Moshe Barabim. If he would answer, he would be Nogea B'davar, subjective. Couldn't do nothing, and everybody was crying because he embarrassed Moshe Rabbeinu Barabim, and he took the woman in public and did that. So Pinchas couldn't tolerate this. He assassinated him. So let me tell you the connection of Akiva and his wife with Zimri and Cosby. When he grabbed the woman by the hair, the woman, till this day, a woman's hair is the most beautiful thing, and they're very conscious of it. And that's decent women, that's the only thing they can wear open. They can't walk around without clothes. Women the hair is combed, beautifully combed. Didn't Rabbi Akiva, when they martyred him, wasn't his body combed with combs? They raked his skin. He's a Gilgul of Zimri. And Cosby, she was the daughter of the king, Balak, who they called Tsur. Wasn't Rabbi Akiva's wife the wife of this guy Turnus Rufus? And he married her, and so it goes into many different things. It was the Gilgul of Akiva and his wife, was the Gilgul of Zimri and Cosby. There's many other connections. It's interesting, huh? When it says Ben Chazeh Eliyahu, it doesn't mean the same man. It means 500 years later. Just like it says Bilam, that's Laban. How could it be? It's 500 years later. And it says the king of Mitzrayim, that's the king of Nineveh. How could that be? That's 500 years later. It means the same neshama, the Gilgul, the reincarnation. Let's go to another point. You know that Parshas Pinchas ends the Masorah. There's no more instructions from Hashem to Moshe after this. That's it. The last pasuk of Pinchas, there's no more instructions from Hashem to Moshe after this. Next to Sefer Devarim is a review. But these last parshas, there's nothing new here. The last pasuk in Pinchas says that's it. As Rav Shamshval Hirsch goes into this, Pinchas is the end of the Masorah. Look what it says here. But last pasuk, Vayomer Moshe el bnei Yisrael kechol, exactly Tiva Hashem as Moshe. Everything God commanded Moshe. End of the Masorah. And it says here, Divrei Rabbi Shmuel lefi sha'ad kan, until this point, Devarov shel Mokom. This is the end of God's talk. Parshas Nedorim, the next one, Mascheles, it starts B'dibura shel Moshe, because it says Yidaber Moshe el Rosh Amatos next week. Nothing to do with Hashem. And it's talked about Nedorim, Neder. You make a Neder, you want to give some korbanos. No one told you must make a Neder. That's the end of the Masorah. This stuff about making a Neder was mentioned earlier in the Torah. But now you really want to make a Neder. Well, this is how you do it. It's not a new instruction. Then it says later, in the next week, Matos, it says go torture the Midianite. Well, it says in Pinchas, right here, in the beginning of Pinchas, Soror as a Midyanim, to torture the Midyanim. So Moshe heard it, but he had to wait a few weeks or months until he did it. There's nothing new after the end of Pinchas. The Masorah is over. That's the end of the instructions. Anything else that comes is a review of old information, like dividing the Matos up with the 42 places they stopped, Matos and Maseh, the 42 places they stopped in 40 years. That's old history. There is nothing new after Pinchas in the Torah. Look at Shamshval Hirsch, and the Rashi says, Ad kan divrei Mokom. That's it. That's the end of it. And look at the Sifsei Chachamim on the Rashi. That's the end of the Masorah. No more instructions have been given. That Moshe has to die later on at the end of the Devarim. It says that already this week. All right. Then it says in this parsha, B'nei Korach lo meisu. Really? I thought they all died. Doesn't it say in last week's Seder, everyone with Korach, his whole mishpacha, the family, the merchandise, the furniture, the cattle, all died. Everyone, chol beisam, chol esher Korach. How can you say B'nei Korach lo meisu? It says right here. What do you mean lo meisu? It didn't say b'chai, they lived. How could you be lo meisu, didn't die, but you didn't live? So how could it be? What is it? You didn't die, but you didn't live. And besides that, if the B'nai Korach really died, how come every Monday morning you say Lam Naseh B'nai Korach Mizmor? In fact, there's 11 chapters in Tehillim, starting with 42, that have 11 chapters of Korach. I thought they all died, but they didn't die. It says Lo Meisu, they didn't die, but it says in Korach none of them survived. How could it be? So there were 3 of them that survived, and 7 went to Gehenna with the father. 3 of them is called Osir. 3 people that David put their kapitla, their thoughts into Tehillim. Osir, Elkanah, and Abiosoph. These 3 of the 10 didn't die. The rest died. And so my father explains, like Lechet Tzadik Brocha in the Mayim Beis of Sheva, how can you lo meisu not die but you didn't live? Don't say chai, except but they lo meisu. And it says like this, they said to Gemara, they went to a high place in Gehenna, not in a deep place where they got burned up, a high place in Gehenna, and they survived. What does that mean? Father explained, a high place in Gehenna means they didn't die, they suffered for years and years. What's that high place in Gehenna? This world. Hashem doesn't let some people die. Lets them live a long life with terrible, miserable sorrows, and doesn't let you die. Doesn't let you commit suicide, doesn't let the heart stop beating. He wants you to go through a Gehenna in this world. And some people know what that means. He didn't let you die, he died. I don't know how long they lived, very long, with a miserable life. Just says, a hechem mokim Gehenna, a high place in Gehenna. Look in the Maya. Now, it says over here in Pinchas, all the different families, and it comes out at the end 600 and 1,730. Well, in the beginning of the 40 years, it was 600, 3,550. You subtract 601,730 from 603,550, get to 1820. That's the difference. In 40 years, the entire 600,000 died and was reborn and relived. Same people between 20 and 60. And in those 40 years, there was rebirth, and everybody between 20 and 60 died, and that was 603,550, and they were reborn with except 1820. What's the difference? 1820. 1820 is a magic number in Torah. 1820 times is Hashem's name in Tanakh. Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's one. Number two, if you take the word Bereshis, it's 1820. Take out every letter of Bereshis and add it up. B'milui, Beis Yud Sov, Reish Yud Shin, Aleph Lamed Fei, Shin Yud Nun, Shin Yud Nun, Tav Aleph Vav. They come out 1820. More than that, when the Kohanim bless you, the first and last words of every pasuk is 1820. Yorecha v'yishmerecha, Yor v'yikonecha, Yisa Shalom. It's 1820. There's more things. I just want to tell you a few things. It's not haphazard. Why Hashem made it that the difference of the two countings is 1820. This is really al pi Kabbalah, but there are certain things that are 1820. Now, amongst the counting here, it says this Shevet had this much and this Shevet had this much, and it's something very interesting. Reuven had this much, Shimon had that much, not Levi, they counted later. Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun. Now, Yehuda had the most, 74,000, 75,000. But interesting here, Eile b'nei Dan. Look at this. The Mishpachosam, Le Shucham, Mishpachas HaShuchami. That's it. That's the whole family of Dan. And all the families that came from Shucham in the last, in Mitzrayim, 210 years, was 64,400. From one man came 64,400. And Binyamin, who had here mentioned 5 kids, they had 45,600 from 5. And this man from 1 had 64,000. How's that possible? First of all, Shucham is the same as Chushim. Chushim means this son of Dan. Chushim, Shucham, the same letters turned around. Chushim means he didn't have a chush. He couldn't hear. He was deaf. Deaf man, one son, and from that family all the way down, came 64,400. And from Binyamin, that has 5 children, came 45,000. And this is one man had more. So the answer is like this: that Dan had a lot of daughters. Bas techila simin yafa lebanim. If you have a daughter first, that means you're going to have a lot of kids. You want to have a bechor in that family. You have a daughter first, it means you're going to have a lot of sons. So maybe you had a daughter first, and then one son, and the son had, who knows, 15, 20 sons, and they had 20 sons, they had 20 sons, they had 20 sons. You know how to work geometric progression. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 250, 500, 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, 8,000, 16, 32. So this is geometric progression. So Chushim or Shuchim had one, eventually in the course of the years, they had a daughter first, and daughters had, who knows, 20 sons, and many daughters, they all had sons. That's how the tribe of Dan had so many. Now, one more thing. Shem Bas Asher Sorach. We're only talking about men who inherit the land. Women don't inherit the land. Why don't you tell me her children? No. I want you to tell, this is an exception. The Bnei here. Bnei Asher leMishpachos leYimno Mishpachos HaYimono HaYimno the Yishvi Mishpachos HaYishvi the Brio Mishpachos HaBrii Bnei Brii Chever Mishpachos HaChevri the Malkiel Mishpachos HaMalkieli the Shem Bas Asher Sora. Why do you mention her? Women don't inherit. And why don't you tell me her children? She is different. She is one of the 9 people that went into Gan Eden alive. And besides, she told Moshe where Yosef is buried, because she lived 270 years. She was around when Yaakov was around. Sure. And Yaakov, when he came back, he lived, I don't know, but he came back, he was 100 years old, and he died at Yaakov died at 148, yeah, and so that's 48 more years, and then they went to Mitzrayim, 210 years, and now it's the end of 40 years in the Midbar. She was 270 years old, and she told me, Moshe, the night of the Yetzias Mitzrayim, Yosef was buried right over here. So she's a special person, lived 270 years, and there are 9 people that went and got Eden, and she's one of them. You want to know the other, who they are? Chanoch, the early times of Adam, this man who lived very short life of 365 years, because everyone else had lived 800 to 900 years, and he had the son that lived the longest of any human being in those days. Chanoch lived the shortest, 365, and he had the son that lived the longer than any human being, Meshuselach, 930 years, because he should have lived 1,000, but 70 years were taken away to give to David HaMelech. So it was Chanoch, and then came Eliyahu Hanavi, went to Gan Eden alive. And Mashiach will go, whoever he is or will go to Gan Eden alive. Eliezer, Eved Abraham, goes to Gan Eden alive. Hiram, the man that helped Shlomo build the base of Mikdash, go to Gan Eden alive. Oved Melech Hakushi, he was not a black man, he was a Yid. Oved Melech Hakushi went to Gan Eden alive. And Yavetz, Benosha Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, and Bisya, who saved Moshe, and Serach Bas Osher. 9 people. Yesh Omrim, Yeshua ben Levi was number 10. And interesting person, Serach Bas Osher. Alright? Alright? Now we get to the daughters of Zelophehad. They have a complaint against Moashalom. Why don't we inherit any land? My father, Zelophehad, was the only man that came out of Egypt that didn't have sons. And you said every man that comes out of Egypt, Hashem said, will get a part in Eretz Yisrael. Well, he doesn't have sons, only daughters. We would like to inherit that land. So Moshe said, women don't inherit land. Well, why don't you ask Hashem? This is an exception, maybe. And in the 40th year, they asked Moshe that. My father asked in the Maya Beis Sheva, Zelophehad died the first 2 weeks away out of Mitzrayim. He was the man who collected the wood. On Shabbos, went out of the Shus HaYochid, went into the Shus HaRabim, or Carmelis, Shus HaRabim, and brought some wood, cactus or something, some wood. He collected on Shabbos. He ripped it out of the ground, which is in one of the Lamates Malachas, or he bound it up in bundles. It could be one of the Lamates Malachas, or he carried it as one of the Lamates Malachas. He was Chayiv Misa for violating Shabbos. And he did it on purpose, and he wanted to be caught by 2 Edom and die to prove to the people how severe Shabbos is. He did it Shem Shemayim. So Moshe put him in jail, asked Hashem, I know he's Chayiv Misa, but does he get the worst? Skila? Maybe the least, because he did it Shem Shemayim. So Hashem said, stone him. I don't need helpers, thank you so much, but no thanks. Everyone must keep the Torah, Moshe included. Moshe was punished for violating the Torah. No exceptions, no double standards. That's why the Torah is so great. It's honest and yosher in all departments. No exceptions. The 2 sons of Aaron, they wanted to get close to Hashem and bring their covenant. No, you were not instructed. Be so. So they asked Moshe, Avinu Meis Bamidbar, our father died in the Midbar. Well, where do you think he died in? In Eretz Yisrael? I didn't get there yet. Or Mitzrayim? Chicago? Sure, in the Midbar. Ooh, my father died because of the Midbar. He went out in the Midbar that second Shabbos and collected wood, or ripped up wood, or bonded wood. He died because of the Midbar, or something in the Midbar. So Moshe understood already. He was the Makoshesh Eitz. He said, look, Moshe, every man who came out of Mitzrayim is promised the Chelik and Eretz Yisrael. He came out of Mitzrayim, he's dead. He was executed. Tikravna Benos Zelophehad, and Zelophehad, he had daughters who loved Eretz Yisrael. And he loved Hashem in a crazy way. He was Mechal Shabbos, he wanted to die, wanted to be caught, he wanted to be found by 2 Edom. He wanted to prove to the people how severe Shabbos is, and he would give his life for this. So he meant well, but he did his own agenda. You can't do your own agenda in the Torah. You do what the Torah tells you. You know, if you go on TorahAnytime.com, you'll see Ein Ani Mamin, the 13 Ein Ani Mamins. Or now I revise it, Ani Mamin, but does a Torah Jew really understand what that means? And one of them is, the original one was, there is no rights and liberty and freedom in Judaism. Within the law, there's rights and freedom and liberty. Outside the law, there is no freedom. You can't do your own thing. You must follow the Torah or suffer the consequences. You can't just decide to have immoral relationships. No. There's death sentence for that. You can't just decide to publicly desecrate the Shabbos. If there's 2 Eidim, they'll stone you. You can't just decide to talk Lashon Hara. Free speech is asur. Free press is asur. We are bound by divine laws because we're the Am Hashem. For the Ummah Sa'olam don't have all these restrictions. We are a special entity. So therefore, this man did his own thing, and you can't do your own thing, and that's why you suffer the consequences. The man's name was Slavcha, but his father's name was Chefer. Ben Gilad, his father. Ben Machir. Ben Menashe. The Mishgoz Menashe from Yosef. That's Yosef had 2 sons, Menashe and Ephraim. At Tamod, Lefnei Moshe, they stood in front of Moshe, but Lefnei Elazar, in front of Elazar. You mean if Moshe doesn't know it, they're going to go down line to Elazar? HaKohen, Lefnei and the Siyim, you go down to the princes. Chol Ha'edah, down to Sanhedrin. No, it was the other way around. They first tried the Sanhedrin, and they said, we don't know the halacha. If women inherit, and then they went to the 12 princes, then they went to Elazar, the Kohen Gadol, and then they went to Moshe. They said like this. Avinu meis b'midbar. Our father died in the midbar. I told you what it means. He was not in the community Anodim al Hashem that ganged up against Hashem. But that's Korach. Means they really were ganging up against Moshe, but they didn't realize it was against Hashem because Hashem appointed Moshe. He was not he was against you. He was your friend. He was not in Bnei Korach. He was not against you. He died with his own sin. He had no sons. Lama Yigorah, why should we be excluded? Shame Avinu, why should our father's name be excluded? Besot Mishpachta, from his family. All the uncles have a piece in Eretz Yisrael. Why doesn't my father have it? Oh, he's dead, so give it to us. We're the children. He ain't lo ben, he has no son. And if he would have had a son and his son died, but he had a grandson, that would be all right. But he didn't have a son or a grandson. To no lono achuzah, give us the achuzah, inheritance. So amongst our brothers, like every other uncle. Let my father also get it through us. The Yaakov Moshe's mishpaton. Moshe brought their mishpat, a long nun. It's called nun rabasi, a jumbo-sized nun. Like we have in Pinchas, a yud zikira, a little yud, which they messed up, and in the Sabbathine Chumash they didn't make a notice about that. And also in that first pasuk over there, Brisi Shalom, there's a cut in the vav of Shalom, Shlim. They didn't mention that art scroll in the Sabbathine Chumash. That's a major thing. Because the vav in Shalom is cut. That's the only letter in the Torah that can have a cut, no ink, and it's still kosher. Because Shalom, Eliyahu Hanavi, who comes from Pinchas, is going to make the world Shalem again, and then we'll have Shalom. And they didn't mention that, but all Chumashim have it. Same thing here, Mishpaton, a long nun. Now, Lefnei Hashem, before God. Now, Moshe didn't know the answer, and he said, let me ask Hashem. Now, there was another case early in the Torah where they had the first Pesach in the Midbar. Only one in the first year, and then no more for the next 39 years. I had one Pesach in the Midbar, and there were certain people that couldn't observe that first Pesach a year after Yetzias Mitzrayim because they were carrying the Aron of Yosef and they were Tamei. They said, Lama Nigora, why should we be excluded? I mean, we're doing a mitzvah carrying the goof of Yosef, and so why should we miss out on the mitzvah of Korban Pesach? So Hashem, Moshe didn't know the answer. He asked Hashem. He says, if an individual is Tamei, he can make it next month, Iyar, on the 14th day. Roast it on the 14th, eat it at the 15th at night. So they wrote, Lama Nigora, why are we excluded now? Means next year maybe we can do it. So they talk have the law, you can do it next year. These girls said, Lama Yigora. Why will, in the future, Yigora, why will we always excluded? Because if we don't get it now, this first door, forever to the end of time, where there'll never be in our family the peace in Eretz Yisrael, Nachala. So Moshe brought their Mishpaton, long nun. Moshe knew nun share bino. He knew the 50 levels of bino. How couldn't he answer them? If you knew everything, why didn't you answer them? This is a punishment for Moshe. There are 5 things that Moshe didn't know or forgot. And those 5 things start out with the letters of the letters in the Torah that are at the end of a word that have different shape. Osios, Sophios, the end letters. We say in Yiddish, the end Chof, the end Mem, end Nun, the end of Pei. It's Chof, a long Chof as a little Chof, Chof, and then Mem, 2 different Mems, and Nun, little one and a long one, and Tzadi, and Pei, and Chof, and Nun. And there's 5 letters, Manspach. And these are the 5 capital letters that come at the end of a Hebrew word. In English, the beginning of the sentence is always a capital letter. And a proper noun has a capital letter. In Hebrew, the capital letter is at the end of the word. 5 letters like that. Anyhow, Manspach, these are the 5 things Moshe didn't know. One of them is the din of Tzelovchad. So, you want to know all the other ones? Oh, let me tell you. Manspach, write it on top. Mem, Nun, Sadi, Pei, Chof. One is Makoshesh Eisim, he didn't know the halacha. The man did it Shem Shemayim, he gets Misa, but maybe not the worst Misa. He didn't know the halacha, he didn't learn, or he never learned it, or he forgot it. He put him in jail until they found out, and then he stoned him. Nun is no Kev Shem Hashem, the person that cursed God's name, Moshe had to execute him. Maybe he's not executed. Maybe he didn't know what the word meant, just said it. Or my father explains in the Mayim, Moshe never, and you can't remember anything if you don't have a picture in your mind how it could be. Moshe never, for 1 second, ever imagined a person could curse on God. Couldn't imagine this. So this man cursed God. First of all, he mentioned the name, which is Osir. Number 2, he cursed God. So they had to stone him. That's Mem, Nun, Mans. Then comes Tzadi, Tzelovchad, the daughters of Tzelovchad. The girls inherit or not. And then came Pei, Pesach Sheni. If you're Tomei, if an individual's Tomei, you can make it next month. Now, if the Klal Yisrael, 51% is Tomei, you can make it right on the spot, at the right time. Tumah Hutra B'tzibur. But a Yachid, up to 50%, up to 49%, you do it next month. And then comes Pachchof, Clay Midyan. After they kashed all the dishes and pots and pans and midyan, so it was still no good. 100% kosher is no good, so you tovel them. Moshe either forgot that or didn't know that. Then you have to tovel it, even if it's brand new. If you kasher it, it's no good. You got to tovel it. If I own it here and kasher my pot, it's all right, I own it. But if I buy something brand new or own it, like they took the clay midyan, you didn't own it before, you have to kasher, plus you have to tovel it. So to a non-Torah mind, they can say, well, a man goes in a mikveh for Tara and a woman, but a keli? Yeah. That's a Torah thing. You cannot eat off a metal dish. Any metal dish that's not tovel. Metal or glass. Glass you have to tovel the rabbanon, and metal the rice, and both you make a bracha. Al tvilas keli, or if they're more, kelim. And china and porcelain, you have to tovel without a bracha. Why do you have to tovel it? Because you're not eating off of clay. It's coated with glass, and glass has to be toveled. So it's a subject. The clay cheres, by the way, clay cheres is a Hebrew word. The word chaf lamed yud, clay, is like an English word, clay. That's what pottery is. Clay cheres, pure, just pottery, you don't have to tovel, but it's glazed. And you wouldn't eat it unless it's glazed. So you don't eat off, you should glaze it. But glass, you have to, it won't be, you wouldn't eat it unless there's glass on it. On the other hand, you wouldn't glass if there wouldn't be on the pottery, what do you think pottery is? That's clay. C-L-A-Y. So something you have to tovel all china, all porcelain, without a bracha. That's the halacha. So, manspach, mekoshesh, nokev shem Hashem, tzolov chod, pesach sheni, klei midyan. Now, Moshe said, no, let me see, let me ask Hashem. Now, why don't you know the answer? That was a punishment for Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? He said years ago when Yisro suggested to make a appellate division of the courts. Moshe can't do everything himself. Yisro said, people standing around all day and night to get your opinion. You can't do that to the people. Why don't you set up judges? So Moshe finally listened to his father-in-law, the section called Atos Sechazeh. He introduced that section in the Torah, Atos Sechazeh, which means Hashem would have told Moshe without him, but Yisro was such a tzaddik, a ger, tzedek. He was one of the advisors of Pharaoh. It was written because of his schus. Just like this Parsha of Tzolachah, written because of their schus. And the daughters of Tzolachah waited 40 years for this. the man did the Aveir the second week out of Mitzrayim. This was 40 years later. They were waiting for Moshe Rabbeinu to talk about it. Now, Miriam and Aaron is dead. They thought Moshe was going to die soon because they knew he's not coming in there. They had to bring up the subject now. That's why they're chachmonios. They waited 40 years. And number two, they have another question. They said like this. You know, Moshe, my father, Lavka was a Bechor. He gets a double portion. And his father came out of Mitzrayim too, Chafer. He also was a Bechor. He gets double. So Slavka inherited his father a double portion. And Slavka was a Bechor. 4 times as much property. He said, these are smart girls. And the third thing is, if women don't inherit and women don't count as anything, then my mother didn't have any children. And therefore, she's a Yavoma. And a Yavoma has to marry her brother. And if you would marry the brother, the child would have the Shama of Slavchad. And if we are girls, contingent people, then my mother's not a Yavoma. Why didn't she marry anybody else in the world? So they were very wise daughters. Moshe said, let me ask Hashem. Now, when it came to the people carrying the Aron of Yosef, they said, Lama, Nigor, Ra, why we excluded? He said, you stay here, I'm going to ask Hashem, and then I'll tell you the answer. He didn't tell them, stay here, and I'm going to ask Hashem, and I'm going to tell you the answer. He never responded to them in the Torah, never. You know why? To the people that carried Yosef, he responded and had a Dvar Torah with them back and forth. And it says when you discuss Torah with the person, they argue each back and forth and they become the best friends, but they argue with Shem Shemaim. This Chavrusa Shaf, this argument, Shach Libatai, that's what men do. Moshe didn't want to get involved in a discussion with women. That's pasnish for women to go into Torah with the details and lumdus. That's not for women. Women want to know the halacha, not the what would be if. What would be if? That's what the Gemara is about. What would be if? Let's say it's like this. Theoretically, it would work. But that's pure Talmud Torah. Women are more practical. They can't tolerate that. Like we're learning now in Chulin. Wow. How every possibility they shech the trachea, 1/3 of the top ring, 1/3 of the top ring, 2/3 of the top ring. Is it kosher or not? This and the final halacha has nothing to do with this. Halacha is a certain halacha, but women cannot. It's not their nature. They're more practical, but man has to learn Torah. Even has no practical application. By the way, there's a few things in Torah that never were, and never could be. Neg tzaras happened to a few individuals, never to human beings, never. And Yehani Dachas couldn't happen and never happened. Ben Sora and Mora never happened, never could happen. Why do you learn it? The Rush of Kabbalah Schar. It's a mitzvah to learn Torah. There's things called theoretical physics. Never could happen, but it's theoretical. Theoretical mathematics, yeah. The square root of a negative number. It's such a thing. So my grandfather Zatzal said like this. Moshe couldn't answer them. I'll tell you why he couldn't answer. I'll punish him for Moshe. Because he said, when Yisro set up the appellate division of all these judges, the judges of 1,000, the judges of 100, judges of 15, and judges of 10. So they had a lot of judges. It came out 78,000 judges. So Moshe said to them, Kol Dovish Kosher Bikem, anything that's too hard for you, Tovai bring to me. And the judges couldn't, the judge of 10 didn't have a shala, went to the judge of 50. The Dayan of 50 went to the Dayan of 100. Dayan of 100 went to the Dayan of 1,000. If Dayan on 1,000 couldn't figure out, they brought to Moshe. Moshe shouldn't have said, Kol Dovish Kosher Bikem. That's too much of a put down. Should say everything, that means everything's too hard for you, bring to me. Should have said everything that's too hard, bring it, and we'll work on it. He says, Mikem, for you, that's a put down. The word Eli, bring to me. She didn't have to say it like that. That was the Moshe Hashem punished him. Now that even what a woman comes up with, you can't figure out. It's a punishment. My grandfather, Zeichet Tzadik Rochav Rabbi Yehuda Schwab, said like this. Listen to this genius. Since they said, my father Korach, my father Tzalofchad was your friend. He was not in the revolution against you with Korach and all the other scoundrels. He was a decent man. He behaved himself. That already pasuk Moshe, because this is called Shochad Devarim. You were bribed with words. When I give you bribe to fix a case, that's bribery of money. Shochad Mammon. Shochad Devarim means I praise you, I give you a compliment. I'm already Nogea Badovra, I'm subjective already. I can't be as treated them as objective as I could, wanted to be. Immediately they said, our father, the Hoya Badas Korah, he was your friend. Moshe's finished, he can't be a Dayan. It was not in that group, Hanodam al Hashem, that ganged up against Hashem, which was really against Moshe. But Adas Korach means he was your friend. If that's the case, Moshe is possible to be a Dayan. They asked Hashem. Mishpaton, the long nun, mean Moshe knew all the 50 things, but this was the punishment, he didn't answer. Yom Hashem al Moshe, he came, they're right. B'no Slovchos Dovros, they're speaking correct. No Santitin, give it to them double. Because the father was a Bechor, give him double portion. And his father, Chayva, was a Bechor. So Slovchad got his father's portion, which was double, and he himself was a Bechor, so he got a double again. 4 portions they got, instead of 1. And that 4 portion was divided amongst 4 girls. They said, No Santitin, give it to them, Lohem, a Lohem male form, why? They are lumdim, like men. They understand how to debate. Achuzas nachla v'soch achei avim, as like their father's brothers, like their uncles, like the father would be living. Ma'avartus nachlas avim lehem, give it to them. Now let's have the rule, general rule. Well, b'nei Yisrael the davar ish kiyom is a man who dies. Ubein ein lo, he has no sons. Ma'avartus is a nachlos lebitl, give it to his daughters. But maybe this is different. This is Eretz Yisrael. Once in the history of the world, the people taking over Eretz Yisrael. A nachla, plain thing. Okay, if you don't have a son, give it to the daughters. Maybe this is different. Women don't inherit Eretz Yisrael. This is the exception. All the other times when there are no sons, you give it to the daughter. Very good. And maybe Eretz Yisrael is different because it's only inherited by men. Only. This is the exception. Let me go further. Let's say a man doesn't have even daughters. Nothing. Who? When the satim is nachlos, give the nachlo. The father's brothers. There's no children. He has no brothers. His father's brothers. His brothers or his uncle. If he has no brothers to his father, he has no uncles. He has no brothers, he has no uncles. To his closest relative. Now most of the Gemara says She'era means wife. But not in this case. Because it says, it has to be close to you from your family. Your wife doesn't come from your family. You married her. She didn't come from your family. So the Gemara says on this buzzing, She'ero is wife. However, that's what it usually means. But here it says, you have to be someone in your father's family. Mishpach is only the father. Mishpach is only from the father. The woman's not your father's daughter. She's not your sister. The She'ero. Now let's say this man has no, the father who died has no brothers, no uncles, nobody. There is no Jew in the world that has no korah. Everybody has a korah, but let's say you can't find a korah. Maybe then you can give it to the wife. She'ero means anyone that's very close. Mishpachta, Yorash also, Yorash, and that person also will inherit that piece of land, the Nosh and the Keva. There'll be for Neisah a everlasting statue. Moshe, the God commanded is Moshe. All right, now Rabbi, we're finished with our shir, and we hope you enjoyed it. And now I want to tell you something. Anybody listening to me on TorahAnytime.com, I want you to know that we're living in very difficult parnasa times. I have ideas that anyone who has a parnasa problem, give me a call. I have an idea that could make you a very happy person. It's a mitzvah to make other people have a parnasa. I can offer to people. You have to call me off, on my cell phone, 845-826-4789. Have a good week. Shvuah Tov.